Welcome back to another episode of the Outside of Football podcast, coming to you every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 a.m. in the morning, using advanced stats to review and preview all the games. Previews are on to Thursday, and reviews are on Tuesday. And today we're here with the week number 8. Week number 8 review. We're almost at the midway point. Technically we are, if you count out of 16, but I don't know. It's an odd number of weeks in the season, so never mind. A mock draft 2.0 mid-season mock draft coming out on Friday. Not quite sure what time it is, but it's going to come out on Friday. So yeah, but let's get into the week preview, starting off with the Thursday night game, Atlanta Falcons versus the Carolina Panthers, where the Falcons beat the Carolina Panthers, covering 1.5 points, winning the game 25-17. On Thursday Night Football. I mean, it was an okay game. It's not at the top of the list in terms of Thursday nighters. Maybe this season because we haven't had many good ones, but yeah. I mean, the Panthers have been underrated coming into not underrated, but I think they were underrated coming into the season. Then I think the hype for them kind of got a bit out of control. I mean, they're getting McCaffrey back, which might make their team worse, but whatever. The Falcons, though, I mean, they won the game. Todd Gurley was terrible again. He even got benched in a way looking back at him having 18 carries, he didn't get benched, but Brian Hill was like 20 times better than him. He had 5 yards per carry, only 11 carries. Todd Gurley had 18 carries for 46 yards, 2.6 yards a carry. They ran the ball a ton. I mean, Matt Ryan was pretty good despite a pretty bad interception, but he was pretty good other than that, and they ended up winning the game. I mean, there were so many drives, first drive in particular, where they kind of stalled out after giving Gurley some carries to go nowhere. Like, they started off the first drive with some nice play-action passing, all that, and then they ran the ball with Gurley, and then, three times in a row, they ended up kicking a field goal in that possession, but yeah. And then, I mean, the Panthers, it was okay. Teddy was not great. He had an interception dropped and ended up getting injured. P.J. Walker came in. He had a touchdown drop. Pass dropped in the end zone on his very first throw. And then, it is what it is, though. They almost, no, I mean, they could have won the game. They had a fourth that they kind of left on the table with, they had a fourth down. I thought I ended the audio for a second. They had a fourth down that they left on the table at around midfield, and then they punted it. But, I mean, other than that, I mean, they really weren't. I mean, they were in the game, but not in the game. Then Teddy threw a pick to end the game, but there was a penalty, like a holding penalty, so it didn't matter. Like, Teddy threw a pick to end the game, and the Falcons won the game. The Falcons, with interim coach, are like 3-1, but it's been a very weird 3-1. Because they haven't played phenomenally well, or it hasn't been great at least from like a game plan standpoint. The fact that Todd Gurley is getting damn near 20 carries with 2.6 yards per carry is pretty shitty coaching, to be honest. But and also the fact that Brian Hill has been much better than Todd Gurley has in the season. So, I mean, sure. They're winning games, which, if you're winning games, you shouldn't get content. Like, you shouldn't be winning games we're perfect. Like, well, no, you're not close to perfect. Hence the reason you're only 2-6. So, yeah. The Falcons next week go on up against the Denver Broncos and the Panthers. And the Panthers have the Kansas City Chiefs. That's interesting. I don't expect them to win that game. They're getting McCaffrey back as well. That probably doesn't matter. If anything, it probably has more of a negative effect. If they use him heavily, it probably has more of a negative effect than a positive effect. So, yeah. But on to the next game, though. Minnesota Vikings versus the Minnesota Vikings upset over the Packers in Lambeau, or at Lambeau, whatever. Ended up beating the Packers. It was a pretty weird game in terms of there was like barely any offensive possessions in this game. Both teams controlled the ball. Well, maybe not controlled the ball, but both teams had these long, sustained drives, which I guess you would call like controlling the ball. Like you don't control the clock. Like you can control the clock in more ways than just running the ball. So, yeah, that's what they did. And yeah, I mean the Packers at least. The Packers threw the ball a ton. Neither Kirk Cousins or Rodgers really went down the field that often. Well, Rodgers went down the field more often than Kirk Cousins, but it felt like a lot of both of their passes were around the line of scrimmage. It felt like Jamal Williams had an absurd amount of targets in this game. And AJ Dillon played the most he's ever played. Kirk Cousins had like an average of like somehow had 11 yards per attempt. This is a Dalvin Cook game. Cook is really good. Cook had probably the best game of the season for himself. And they ended up winning the game because he just broke off some big plays. He had like 4 touchdowns. So, yeah. Even though Rodgers probably threw the ball better than Kirk Cousins, I mean, Cousins didn't do anything, especially when you put it into the context that I'm an Adam Thielen fantasy owner and he had like 6 points, which sucks. So, yeah, but you know, it was a weird game. It was a really weird game. And then the Vikings almost blew the game by punting the ball to Aaron Rodgers with about a minute left. After they ran the ball on 3rd and 9, I mean, on like a 3rd and 8 or 3rd and 9, one or the other. But they ended up running the ball in a very disadvantageous spot, and they gave the ball back to Rodgers, who ended up getting sacked for a fumble. But, yeah, the Vikings, this was just a weird game. There was not many offensive possessions to be had from both sides. Like, both teams just had these long-ass sustained drives. In the first half, was just 2 drives. One drive was the first quarter. The other team had the second quarter, and then boom, they went to halftime. Like, it was just a weird game. I didn't think that the Vikings were going to win this game at all. They ended up winning it. Without passing the ball, basically. Or at least it felt that way. So, I mean, the Vikings aren't good. And the Packers are probably maybe overrated. Especially when you, like, I don't know. Because especially when you put it into the context that they were probably overrated last year as well. Relative to their record. I mean, their record was 13-3 wasn't indicative of what they were last year, based off the fact that they played like 7 backup quarterbacks. So, I mean, like when you put that context, when you add that context to it, and the fact that the Lions' 3rd-string quarterback almost beat the Packers, is also crazy. So, I mean, they're probably back in that boat again. And when you really think about it, they are like almost an identical team to what they were last year. The difference was in the beginning of the season, Aaron Rodgers was playing much, much better. Now he's not playing as good as he has been the whole season, and he's not 2019 Rodgers. He's probably a step above that, but he's not. The last couple of weeks, he hasn't been what maybe he's been the rest of the season. Like, the stats were great in the Texans game, but there was a lot of Devontae Adams getting wide open and running after the catch. So, yeah. But looking at this past week, the Vikings led the week in dropback EPA, most of which being running after the catch because, like I said, Kirk Cousins had an average after target of like 1 yard. And like 93% of his passes were short of the sticks. The first down sticks, that is, not the line of scrimmage, even though that was probably true too. But yeah, I mean, he hasn't been as great as he was earlier in the season, Aaron Rodgers. Which begs the question is, and the fact that this was against a Vikings secondary that was ass and injured. that was asked to begin with and then injured in the game. The fact that they were still able to make Rodgers hold on to the ball longer than he probably should and is crazy. I mean, maybe it's the receivers for the Packers. I mean, you still have Devontae Adams who ate them alive, but I mean, he's not as good as he was earlier this season, Aaron Rodgers. So, yeah. On to the next game, though. We have Cincinnati Bengals versus the Tennessee Titans. This game went differently than I expected it to. I don't even think the over hit. What was the total for this game? I don't even remember at this point. But I don't even think the over hit for this game. Because the Titans had a pretty meh first half of the game. Despite Derrick Henry having an actual good game for like the second time this season, they had a pretty meh offensive performance. And they were down, and it's like the Titans, when will they learn that Derrick Henry is not going to dig you out of a hole? Like, every time they've gone down, somehow Derrick Henry has damn near 20 carries, and they're still down. Like, are you going to get the message that maybe this isn't how you should attempt to come back in this football game? But it seems like they do it every time, and they don't execute the comeback every time. Well, they almost did against Pittsburgh, but yeah. Which is really weird when you put that into, that's really weird when you put it in the context of that. Like, they really almost beat Pittsburgh, who just beat the Ravens in a 7-0, and they almost lost to the Titans, who lost to the Bengals, who were 1-5 coming into the week. Like, I don't like looking at it like that because it's not that necessarily that black and white, but yeah. The Titans have a bad defense. They struggled to score the ball. I mean, Ryan Tannehill wasn't necessarily good. Derrick Henry was, but even when you put it into the context of the full game, his 6.2 yards per carry, which is amazing for a running back, was still 2 yards below Tannehill per attempt. So, I mean, just running the ball isn't that efficient of a strategy, especially when playing from behind, which the Titans were for basically the whole game. On the other hand, though, Joe Burrow was phenomenal. Joe Burrow, and I mean, one thing I will say about this team is they don't have too many guys that actually separate. Like, I'll do a video about Joe Burrow versus Justin Herbert, maybe. I probably won't, but I'll see. So I was looking on NGS, because it seems like there's a ton of guys on their team that don't get open. So I was looking at NGS, and then the aggressiveness percentage stat, which is basically how many times a quarterback throws it into a tight window, which could mean two things. Either your receivers don't get open or you're forcing it, or it could mean both. You're forcing it because your receivers don't get open. Joe Burrow was second in aggressiveness percentage on nextgenstats.com, but kind of adds a stat to the assumption that I made from watching the games. But yeah, Joe Burrow's just making crazy play after crazy play, not hitting these, because it was more of a running feat than a passing play, where he was running around in a circle and then he was running around in circles and he was able to get like 7 yards out of it. I mean, he had an INT negated. I mean, yeah. So, yeah. And then you have the Titans, who also had an interception negated, that would have put them in great field position. No, the negated INT that Joe Burrow had would have put the Titans in great field position, which could have gave them a higher chance of winning the game. But it was a negated INT on a pass interference that probably shouldn't have been called on Malcolm Butler. So that's that. I mean, they probably wouldn't have won the game anyway, but I mean, still. The penalty being called gave them a 0% chance of winning the game because it just gave the Bengals the ball to end the game basically. So and they ended the game and they ended up losing and having no chance of winning it at that point. So yeah, this could have went the other way maybe. You still had to get 2 scores in order to win the game because they were down 11 still. So yeah, but Yeah, that's the Seahawks versus the Seahawks. That's the Cincinnati Bengals versus the Titans. Now let's get on to the next game. The Kansas City Chiefs versus the Jets. And in the last segment, in the last game, I forgot to mention that the Titans got Desmond King, which is an interesting signing because I mean, he was great like a couple years ago. He's been not so great, though he hasn't been bad. He was moved to safety this year when they added Chris Harris Jr., who also got injured, but yeah. In terms of snap count, let me get that up right quick. In terms of snap count, he's like not year off at safety, but I don't play more in the slot later on in the season. I don't know how he snapped exactly in the slot since that point. If it can load, my computer is slow as hell. So yeah, let's get it up right now though. The Desmond King is potentially a great acquisition, especially if you get back Adoree Jackson. Then you have a secondary that's potentially pretty damn great. Adoree Jackson's really good, and Desmond King can be pretty good at times, though he hasn't been phenomenal. He's been actually pretty solid this season, though. Like, he has allowed 60 yards and 6 yards per reception. So, I mean, he's been pretty good this season at safety. But, yeah, he is playing more in the slot. He did start playing more in the slot as of recently. Like, from week 4 on, he's played at least 40 snaps in the slot since week 4. I mean, since week 4. Like, between week 4 and week 7, because he didn't play this past week, he played 46 snaps, 48 snaps, and 42 snaps in the slot. So his slot snaps ramped up a ton, like I thought they did, but I just wanted to confirm that. So yeah, on the Jets versus the Chiefs. Maybe this isn't a game I want to talk about. Maybe I could have just left it at that with the Desmond King segment instead of the Chiefs segment. Instead, I will talk about the game. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is making some crazy throws. That flat line, like, laser from 40 yards out, it was crazy. I mean, Andy Reid, I said he might not call as many creative plays as he normally does. I mean, nah. I mean, he pulled out the same screenplay that he did against the Ravens when they got Anthony Sherman a touchdown, the little bootleg, underhand flip thing. But yeah, Mahomes was great today. Mahomes was phenomenal. It is the Jets, though. And Le'Veon his former team, played the best game he ever has for the Jets. He was awful today. He had like a 1 point whatever per carry. He had 7 yards on 6 carries. Or something like that. It was bad for Le'Veon. It was bad for Le'Veon. And, like, I have a note here. He looks slow as fuck. He really does, though. I mean, he doesn't look explosive at all. Like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who ran a 4.6, which isn't fast. I mean, I thought he was faster than that on tape. Like, I didn't think he was, like, Tyreek Hill or anything, but I thought he was faster than 4.6 on tape. I mean, in terms of how fast he can accelerate, like, he has great burst. But Le'Veon Bell doesn't have the great burst or the long speed. He's just slow. So, like, I was looking at him running the open field, and I was like, damn, he looks slow as hell on his catch that he had. But, yeah, I mean, the Chiefs look amazing against the Jets, though. But this was a game where it looks like they were just trying to spread it to everybody. Travis Kelce got involved. DeMarcus Robinson got involved. Patrick Mahomes probably played longer than he should have. But, yeah, it is what it is, though. They steamrolled over the Jets and covered the 20 points. The Jets, on the other hand, looking at Trevor Lawrence, who has COVID-19 and did not play. DJ came in, played pretty well, and people might start to say that Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne is really good, though. Travis Etienne is like a mix of Saquon Barkley athleticism-wise and Alvin Kamara in terms of his contact balance, in my opinion. He's by far the best running back in the class, and anybody who ever says that Travis Etienne is not the best running back in the class is dead-ass lying to you in your face. Like, Travis Etienne's, like, 0 to 60 acceleration is maybe the best ever. Nah, not the best ever, but the best from a running back since in a while. I think it's better than Saquon Barkley. And he has the contact balance of Alvin Kamara. But yeah, people might start to say that Trevor Lawrence is a system quarterback since DJ came in. I mean, the little bit I saw about all of DJ whatever, in high school. I don't like watching high school tape. It doesn't like the camera angles is terrible to look at. But he looks like he looked legit in high school. Like I thought he was really damn good. So him being good isn't surprising me at all. So I mean, yeah, don't say that for Trevor. I think they just have two great quarterback prospects on their hands right now, and DJ and Trevor. So yeah, he made a really good throw over the middle. That rocket, like he has a cannon for an arm. I mean, his accuracy, ball location didn't look great from what I saw him in high school. Like I really only watched the 2 games when they played Madden Day because I wanted to see him and Bryce Young at the same time. So I watched that game. I mean, the ball location accuracy didn't look phenomenal in that game, but the arm was definitely there, and he showed it in college, and he looked pretty accurate. He was pretty good. But this isn't a college podcast though. This is a NFL podcast. But if you want some college stuff, mock draft coming out on Friday, you can look at the other mock draft, the 1.0, the quarterly mock draft after week 4. Like you can look at that one, still on the channel, of course. Yeah. So yeah, that's the Jets. The Jets suck. They should be looking for their new quarterback. If they don't draft Trevor Lawrence, that's insane. If they don't draft Trevor Lawrence, it's like at that point, what are you doing? Because if you want to do something to build around Darnold, like if you trade back, I mean, you already have 2 first-rounders, so then what would the objective be? I think we already know that Darnold isn't as good as Trevor Lawrence, probably. Or maybe because of the unknown of Trevor Lawrence and what we know of Trevor Lawrence. Like, if you want to absolve Darnold of everything and say it's the supporting cast and Darnold isn't the problem at all, which isn't true. He's definitely part of the problem. He might not be the problem itself, but he's definitely part of it. If you want to look at it that way, then even still, Trevor Lawrence is universally better at the college level than Sam Darnold, unless you want to be one of those contrarians and say, oh no, Trevor Lawrence is overrated. He's not even better than player X or whatever. Then shut the fuck up first, and then 2, Trevor Lawrence is better than Darnold was as a prospect. If you really want to absolve Darnold of everything, which you shouldn't do, because he hasn't been that good, independent of everything being shit around him, he hasn't been that good individually. From a ball location standpoint, he's one of the worst deep ball throwers, below average in terms of intermediate accuracy. He's he's kind of more average in that tier, but like Trevor Lawrence, it's definitely the pick there. It's the pick for almost everybody if you're picking number 1, unless you like the Chiefs, which is impossible. But out of the teams that are feasibly picked number 1, he's definitely the guy. I'm taking him over Tua, taking him over Herbert, maybe over Burrow. Like I'll do a video of Herbert versus Burrow because some people would say that Herbert's better than Burrow. I mean, I don't know if I'd say that quite, but I don't know. I'll take a deeper dive into the tape before I make my video about it. So yeah. On to the next game though. Colts versus the Lions. I actually was on the other side of this game. I thought the Detroit +3 was a good play. I mean, it seemed like it was going to be early. Like, they ended up scoring. They went up like 7-0. And then in typical, this wasn't that big of a lead. But they ended up losing the game by a lot, 41-21. They got blown out in a way that I didn't necessarily expect them to. I mean, I thought at least they put up a fight. No, they just got the shit beat out of them. And the Lions just might suck. I mean, then again, Matthew Stafford's like splits without Kenny Galladay. Kenny Galladay got injured in this game. Let me start by saying that, I guess. Kenny Galladay ended up getting injured. And I'm not going to say they lost because Galladay got injured. Like, I don't think he'd make a 20-point difference, but, it definitely helped. Definitely helped if he was there. He wasn't. I mean, they got rocked. They probably still would have got rocked if they had him or not, but he got injured nonetheless, if you want to use that as an excuse. Matthew Stafford, he wasn't perfect. He missed some good throws. The stats don't look terrible. And he wasn't just so that's that. I mean, damn, never mind. But Matthew Stafford wasn't awful today. Phillip Rivers was actually pretty good though. He's been very up and down this season, and they're kind of on a make or break, Super Bowl or bust year. I mean, Phillip Rivers is only on a 1 year. I mean, they could re-up if they wanted to, but which probably happens, honestly. But it's a Super Bowl or bust year. Maybe not a Super Bowl or bust because I don't see them as a Super Bowl team. But yeah, I don't see them as a Super Bowl team, personally at least. I just don't think they're that good. Like, they'll beat bad teams and lose to good ones. So the Lions are probably in the middle of that. I think the Lions and the Colts are in a similar tier of team, despite the big discrepancy in their records. Like, the Colts haven't really showed me much of anything to say that they're a great team. Well, I mean, they beat the Lions, but other than that, nothing. They lost to the Jaguars. They beat up on the Jets. Fine. I mean, they're not that good of a team. Like, they're damn sure not in that top tier, despite their record being 5-2 or whatever it is. Like, they're definitely not in the top tier of teams in the NFL. But I think they are. I think they are pretty. I don't even know. I was about to say I think they are pretty good still. I mean, they're good, but I don't think they're nearly as good as their record shows. I mean, they've had a pretty good back-to-back stretch of games. Like, who did they play last week? They played the Bengals last week, I think. I mean, the Bengals defense is shit. Same with the Lions, so, I mean, maybe it's not that good. But, I mean, they are at least... I mean, because in the beginning of the season, I didn't think they were capable of these... Well, after the Jaguars game, I didn't think they were capable... Not even after the Jaguars game. Like, after, their first 4 games-ish, I didn't think they were capable of putting together good offensive performances, period. Which it looks like they are against, the bottom of the barrel. The 14th in EPA per play, which seems a bit much. Like, I don't feel like they're the 15th best offense. They're running the ball a lot, not really efficiently either. Jonathan Taylor hasn't been great. I was lower on him as a prospect, especially looking at how at the rate he forced missed tackles, which was much lower than some other running backs in the class, and his receiving game, him in the receiving game wasn't good. But he's in a spot with a great O-line. Looking at his forced missed tackle percentage, I don't have it updated to to this past week. He's bottom 5 in the league in terms of forced missed tackle percentage. He hasn't been good, despite having the O-line hasn't performed up to par, but, despite having an O-line that should have been great, yeah. The Lions, they're in a weird spot. They should have, looking back at it, would you have contemplated taking, Tua or Justin Herbert, maybe? Maybe. At 3? Maybe. Because it's Matthew Stafford, he played great for his 8 games last year, but he hasn't played nearly up to that level this past season. So maybe this is just a hindsight of 2020, but there were people that suggested the idea. Now looking back at it, maybe they should have done it. Because why not? Why not? Is Matthew Stafford really holding you off from drafting a QB? He probably shouldn't, but, yeah. Right now, they are what? What's their record? 3-5 or whatever the hell they are? They are... they're not that good. They're not that good. Maybe do you trade Matt Stafford? You're probably not going to find a suitor or a partner, but... Yeah, they're 3-4 now. Their record's better than I thought it was. Well, maybe not, actually, but yeah. That's the end of that game. On to the next one, though. And we're on to the Steelers versus the Baltimore Ravens. which was the game of the week coming in. I mean, kind of lived up to that in a way. I mean, it was a close game, came down to the wire, kind of. And the Steelers ended up winning and moving on to 7-0. Now, this is a weird game because, I mean, the Steelers offensively still haven't showed me anything to say that they're, like, good. Like, this was mainly because they capitalized on turnovers and they had a ton of short fields. So, I mean, to be honest, they didn't have to do much. But at the same time, looking at the just the raw yards per attempt numbers for the Steelers this past week, 5.7 through the air, 3 on the ground. Like, it wasn't a great day offensively for the Steelers. Nor the Ravens. Like, they moved the ball better, but they turned the ball over a ton. And the thing about it is, like, Lamar hasn't been that great all season. Like, he hasn't been MVP level all year. And, you know, that's interesting. That's a crazy thing. Because we expected regression from Lamar Jackson, but this is a regression than maybe we expected it to be. This game, fine a couple of, but, I mean, it hasn't been great. Like, I mean, this past game was terrible. He had, let me go back to my notes. He had an INT that was right to a linebacker. He had an amazing throw in on a corner route for a touchdown. He had a dropped INT, a bad interception, a fumble when he was running in open space and dropped it. And yeah. And then he still had that really big throw he made that flipped the field to Duvernay. Probably something felt weird about that. He was wide open. That play just felt funky. The passing offense in total just seems awkward for the Ravens. Like, because he's passing in higher volume, but this season, by and large, in higher volume than he was last season. Even though in terms of attempts, he's high. I mean, in terms of dropbacks, he's higher last year to this point of the season, but it feels like they're passing more. I mean, he's dropped back over 20 times. I mean, he's had 20 pass attempts literally every game in the season, which was not true last year. So that's one big thing that's different this year from last year. Like last year, the first game he had a game with 17 attempts. And, you know, it's not the same as it was last year. And it's not nearly as efficient, but we expected that to happen. So, like, he's had well over 20 attempts. Like, he's had over 25 attempts in almost every game this season, which did not happen last season. So, yeah. He's at last season, he only had over 25 attempts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I mean, damn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 times he had over 30 attempts. And he's had over 25 attempts. And he's had it 7 times through 8 games this year. Massive difference. And it hasn't looked good. He was bad at passing the ball today. He took a ton of sacks, ton of hits, some of which were drawn by himself, some of which were due to the pass rush being amazing for the Steelers, which it is. I'll touch on that a bit later in this part of the podcast, but yeah. But Lamar he still made huge field-flipping plays, like the one he made to Duvernay, and then he had a touchdown negated by a holding. Then Marquise Brown didn't get his feet in, and then Lamar throws a touchdown for a TD right after that. Like, they scored a touchdown 3 times on that drive. And, yeah. But in this season, though, another thing I would like to add is, overall on the season, Lamar doesn't look great in the pocket. He doesn't look comfortable in the pocket. That's what I meant. Like, it looked like the offense looks awkward. He doesn't look comfortable in the pocket. He's like, because dating back to college, when he was passing, he wanted to win from the pocket, stand in the pocket, go through his progressions. He hasn't done that nearly as much as he has. He hasn't done that nearly as much this season as he did leading up to this season. Because even last year, it's like night and day. Because I remember during the summer, I was watching his tape and stuff, and it's like I wanted to take a deeper look myself on how the passing game was so efficient for them. I mean, he was just hitting these throws down the field, making the throws that were less sustainable from season to season. And, yeah. He just doesn't look nearly as comfortable. He looks more like Josh Allen in the pocket instead of Lamar Jackson. So, I mean, yeah. On the Steelers side, though, their pass rush was great as always. Their offense still isn't good. Big Ben missed some throws, made a pretty good throw to actually win the game, the touchdown that actually won the game. But, yeah, their offense isn't that good. It really isn't. Like, their offense isn't that good. Like, I think that they are a good team. I don't think they're 7-0 good. Like, just... Because, like, defense is something that kind of gets overvalued in a way. Like, defense isn't something you should rely on week to week. But the Steelers are, though. Because of how overpowering offense is in the NFL nowadays. Which the Steelers should know firsthand based off the fact that it's so much more difficult now to shut down an offense for a full game than it was back in the day. Case in point, the game versus the Titans this season. They had a great game plan. They shut the Titans down. Well, it was more the Titans actually shutting themselves down, running the ball with Derrick Henry on 2nd and 15, but whatever. It's difficult to shut teams down the whole game. Because then, in the second half, the Titans just started to flood in points. Like, it's actually really difficult to stop a good offense for a full game. So, I don't know if, like, them relying on that isn't a great strategy, especially if their offense doesn't step up. But the thing is, they have the receiver core, in my opinion, to do it. With Claypool emerging, Deontay Johnson, who I think from a talent standpoint is the best one, Juju Smith-Schuster. Like, the weapons are good, but the quarterback might not be. I didn't expect him to be, but I didn't expect the team to still be good with him being bad. Now, the discrepancy between their offense and defense might manifest itself in ways, not in ways, but later on in the season when they have to play a team with, like, the Chiefs, maybe. Because, like, the Chiefs is, like, they're probably built to stop the Chiefs. Not really. They are one of those more blitz-heavy teams which don't necessarily affect the Chiefs. The Chiefs really have struggled the most against teams like either they're coached by Bill Belichick or can get pressure with their front four at a high rate and drop 7 back into coverage. Now, the Steelers potentially could do that, but that's not how they've played this season. And I don't know if their secondary is good enough to hold up against Kansas City. So I don't know how much of a contender they are. Because then again, you could say some of this game was a little bit fluky in how they won it. Like, there is a chance that you make the Ravens turn the ball over like 700 times. But, it's not them or any team 700 times. It's not the most likely thing. Their offense was bad. They had a defensive touchdown. And, I mean, yeah. Like, maybe they're not as good as maybe people might hype them up to be. But I do think they are still good. On to the next game, though. Now we're on to Tua Tagovailoa's debut in the NFL versus the Los Angeles Rams. A game in which they won, not really because of Tua at all. He was not good, really. I mean, no, he was not good. I mean, he had a drop from Gesicki, but he was not good. Like, he fumbled the ball some. The whole game, he just looked rushed. Like, it looked like it was his first game. I'll put it like that, I guess. Even though they still won. And, this game might... Like, I was already leaning towards this direction. Like, maybe Sean McVay is a bit overrated. Like, it seems in a way he's not like Kyle Shanahan, who kind of tailor-makes his game plan specifically for different games. Because, like, McVay looks like he's trying to do the same shit Actually, that's not true. He actually mixed it up a bit, went into some empty sets, more drop-back passing, mainly because they were trailing. But this is the same damn game plan that the Patriots deployed in the Super Bowl, and it picked them apart again. Like, you can maybe blame that on Jared Goff, but the fact that you have the fact that you were dormant the whole game on offense against the game plan that basically ended you in the Super Bowl is interesting in itself. They were amazing defensively. Offensively, not so great. In terms of EPA, they had the Dolphins, that is. In terms of EPA this week, had like the lowest EPA per play this past week of any team. And they somehow won the game. You know, due in part to a return touchdown, a kick return touchdown, a defensive touchdown, and, well, yeah, kick return touchdown and a defensive touchdown. They had the lowest EPA per play of any team this past week. Their offense wasn't great, but Jakeem Grant helped out. A defensive touchdown helped out. The Rams being incompetent, not being able to move the ball, also helped out. The funnier thing about this is they had a lower offensive EPA generated than a Ben DiNucci-led Cowboys offense. So, I mean, think about that how you may. I don't think this game tells us much about Tua because, I mean, one game sample sizes don't tell us much about anything. But, one game sample sizes don't tell us much about anything. But Jared Goff, terrible. I mean, he had an interception drop that could have went for 6 damn near. And, it just wasn't good. It really just wasn't good at all. The Rams looked putrid on offense. Terrible. Some of it unforced, some of it forced by the Dolphins defense, but overall, Jared Goff is terrible. And the Dolphins won the game because of it. And they weren't good themselves. Tua, I mean, I don't know. He wasn't good, nor was he that encouraging. It's not like he made a throw or two that was like, look at that. I mean, the Gesicki throw was pretty good. It didn't count because it was a drop, but I still counted. I'm not going to just act like it didn't happen because it wasn't caught. But, yeah. They're not... He wasn't good. He wasn't that good. I'll say that. He wasn't that good. They still won the game because the Rams were worse, and there was some defensive and special teams help from a touchdown standpoint. They helped them out. So, yeah. On to the next game, though. We have the New England Patriots versus the Buffalo Bills. The Bills escaped this game 24-21 after a Cam Newton fumble, which ends up losing the Patriots the game, in a spot where they got aggressive and ended up costing them. A pretty good play by the Bills defender. I don't remember quite who it was, but forces the fumble, and they end up winning the game. The Bills. And this game is probably they probably won the division with this game basically. At this point, but it's not like they played that well. I mean, Cam Newton and the Patriots struggled through some drops. They had Julian Edelman out, who hasn't been great. So maybe after that, the whole hasn't been really good at this game. But Julian Edelman outside of the Seahawks game hadn't been that good either. They dealt with some drops. And they ran the ball a ton, both teams. So, yeah, Josh Allen, again, has been bad. He's terrible. He went from MVP candidate to Josh Allen again. And then maybe it makes you beg question, did we maybe overreact to him playing up against the Jets? I don't know. Because in a 4-game stretch, he played the Jets, suck. Raiders, suck. Dolphins, don't quite suck, but they had Byron Jones out, who, by the way, hasn't been that good when he's in the game. But, you kind of get the point, though. And then they play the Rams. They almost gave up a 32-point, they almost gave up a 21.2. So, maybe we should have pumped the brakes there. In terms of his accuracy on the deep stuff, it's been significantly worse than it was earlier this season. He's back to the old Josh Allen, I think almost exactly to the T from an adjusted completion percentage standpoint. The deep stuff hasn't been phenomenal. It hasn't since he fell. And yeah, I'm not sure what happened. It was almost saying like it. It was too good to be true. So yeah, I'm not being true. Nah, but seriously though, what the hell happened? Seriously, what the hell happened? Game, even though we played like shit throwing the ball, ran a touchdown. We didn't even throw much. Like, this is a run-heavy game from both. Ran in a touchdown at the line. I mean, yeah, this was a bad game passing the ball from him. But Cam Newton, on the other hand, wasn't as bad. He struggled through 3 drops, I think, which, probably would have changed the game a significant amount. So, yeah, that's the difference. And they ended up winning the game. The Bills are probably going to win the division at this point. I don't think they're contenders anymore since they don't have a viable quarterback right now. Maybe the next game they get on track potentially. I don't know. Who do they play? Damn. But maybe they get back on track potentially. I don't know. But at this point, he played like shit against the Jets. So I'm not quite sure if there is a get back on track game at this point. Like the fact that you against the worst team in the league, they gave their first cover. The Bills might just suck. And I kind of thought they would coming into the season. It looked like they were going to be great in the first couple of weeks. They got me. They really reeled me in with that one. They really got me in the first half of that one. I hated that. But, yeah. They're done. I don't know. I mean, let me not say they're done, but they're done being legit that much. They're not those. They're that. They're far from that as well. They're not anymore. But, yeah. Yeah. On to the last game late. Cleveland versus Cleveland. Odell-less Cleveland Browns lose to the Raiders. And in a very low-scoring game. Terrible weather, I might add. A drop touchdown, some missed field goals from the Raiders, a missed field goal from the Browns. That would have changed the game if both of those plays converted for Cleveland, but neither of them did. And they ended up losing 6-7, 6-16. I mean, they looked like they missed Odell here. I don't know. They didn't score any points. They didn't move the ball outside of one possession where there was a touchdown that was dropped / negated / whatever. Ended up losing to the Raiders. The Raiders aren't that good of a team. Defensively, at least. Offensively, sure. I mean, whatever. The Browns, I mean, this game was just a mess weather-wise. Field goals going all over the place. Both the quarterbacks weren't that good either. I mean, neither of them looked great. I mean, neither of them looked too horrible, everything considered. Because, Baker had a touchdown negated, like I said, which would have put them in the lead early in the second half, which would have put them in the lead early in the second half, but it ended up not happening. They ended up not getting the touchdown due to a drop. The Raiders basically controlled the game the whole time, won it, sent the Browns home sad. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it was a very slow game. The Browns ran the ball a lot and pretty well, I guess, but it didn't matter at all. Saying that they had 6 points, which is a very low amount, especially in today's NFL. The Raiders also did not play well. Did they even score a touchdown? I don't remember them doing so, but yes, they did. I think they missed the extra point, right? But yeah, whatever, man. It was a mess of a game. It was a dull game. It had a shit ton of running. Josh Jacobs ran the ball 31 times, and yeah, it was just a dull game. A dull game through and through that had some unlucky breaks from the Browns that ended up losing them the game. So, yeah, let's get on to a more interesting game, one that actually had a couple points in it. Chargers versus the Broncos. Where the Broncos and Drew Lock plays his first good game of his NFL career. Ends up winning the game against the Chargers 31-30. Not even the first good game of his career. Let me rephrase that. He has the first good half of his career against the Chargers. The first good half of his career. Because the whole game wasn't that damn good. Because I was writing, save me, save me. Yeah, save me from watching this damn team. Save Jerry Jeudy from Drew Lock. Because he's great. And Drew Lock isn't. Drew Lock ends up finishing the game pretty damn well. I mean, the game-ending touchdown itself, maybe a bit of lucky because they had two INTs. They had two pass interferences called. And Drew Lock also threw an interception in the play before that, but whatever. You know, it was a better game from Drew Lock than he ever has, or a better half than Drew Lock has ever played ever. I mean, people might make reference to the Texans game, run after from Noah Fant. He was not that good. There was something back to shit. But Drew Lock, for the first time in his career, played a good game. Or a good half. Justin Herbert, on the other hand, I mean, he was also pretty solid, too. I mean, Justin Herbert has been great. Much, much better than I expected him to be coming into the season. I will say that. I think I'm going to do a video on him versus Burrow eventually. I'm not 100% sure if that's going to happen, but I might do a video of him versus Burrow, who's better. I mean, I might give you a little teaser, probably lean Burrow, but yeah, I don't know. Because Herbert is more volatile than Burrow, but like he did in this game, just making some special throws from an arm talent standpoint, zipped that one in beautifully to Keenan Allen for a touchdown. But yeah, other than that, other than just the big plays, he's not necessarily a consistently good quarterback nowadays. Not nowadays. He's not necessarily a consistently good quarterback outside of a couple plays a game. But I'll talk more in depth about that and more nuanced into that if I make a video about Justin Herbert. But Drew Lock finished the game off phenomenally. 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. The box score stats look great. Probably not as good as the actual game. Had a really bad interception. Had one that was negated in a way. It was out of bounds on the last possession, but it was just barely out of bounds too. But anyway, Drew Lock played a good half of football. They go up against Atlanta next week, I think. So we'll see what happens there. Yeah. The Chargers choked. Like, their ability to hold on to leads is just as bad as the Falcons and the Lions. And one thing I will say, now I'll hold that for the video if I make it, but the ability to hold on to leads is as bad as the Falcons and Lions. So, yeah. Let's get on to the rest of the 4 o'clock slate, though. With the Saints versus the Bears in a game that I expected to be kind of how it went, saying that Drew Brees was going outdoors and into Chicago and the cold, windy weather at that. So they almost lost this game. It went to OT. Oftentimes, let me get my notes up. Oftentimes in this game, there was just a ton of passes short of the sticks, early down runs. This wasn't a great game, but it was for Taysom Hill. He actually did something today, which is a rarity for Taysom Hill. Anyway, though, there was just a ton of plays in which, on 3rd down and longs, they're throwing the ball barely in front of the sticks, behind the sticks, and then they get bailed out sometimes with Alvin Kamara being matched up one-on-one versus Khalil Mack, which is basically Khalil Mack getting cooked, waiting to happen. Khalil Mack is good. Good at a lot of things. A run defender, pass rusher. Just not a good coverage player, and it was showed there as he got cooked by Kamara for a 48-yard gain. But just oftentimes there's these passes behind the sticks, at the sticks, on 3rd down and longs, which are just putting them in positions to punt or just kick a field goal. The accuracy from Drew Brees on throws, like those deep out routes that I was saying he was hitting earlier this season, like games against Detroit and what was the other game? Fuck, I don't even remember at this point, but specifically against Detroit, where he was hitting these passes outside of the numbers. Those weren't there at all this past week, like at all. And he was back to the very short passing stuff, and the accuracy looked terrible again on the intermediate stuff. Like, in specific, he had this throw that looped in over the middle of the field. That was a rainbow of a pass, but whatever. Drew Brees never had the strongest arm, but it looked terrible. But, like I said earlier, they went run heavy, which put them, they went run heavy on some of the earlier downs, which put them in spots to where they're putting Drew Brees into these third and longs, and watch Drew Brees responds by throwing passes behind the sticks, at the sticks. Like, that was just a suboptimal game plan. Like, you can't do that. But then again, their passes are basically just runs, but just more efficient. Like, the depth of target is low as hell. But, you're putting yourself in more advantageous positions to run after the catch. He had a dropped interception, which could have went for 6, potentially from Roquan Smith in overtime, though there was probably a pretty big penalty before that wasn't called, so that wasn't called on that play. So, yeah. Nick Foles looked pretty good to begin the game, and then it kind of fell off. A bad Foles pick, a drop pick from Foles, which would have, if it was caught, would have gave the Saints much worse field position if they actually caught it. But a drop pick by Foles, and then they had a negated fumble that probably should have standed, which ended up letting them convert and tie the game up, which sent it to overtime. The Demario Davis fumble play. I think that's what I'm talking about in my notes. I don't have it down specifically. I don't 100% remember. But I think that play was reversed to not being a fumble, which then ended up letting them tie the game. Which then ended up letting them tie the game up, and they won the game. Not won the game, but they sent it to OT and almost won the game. But yeah, the Saints did not look good. This was one of the ugly Saints games, and they show up every once in a while now, more than they have in other years, mainly because Breeze is much worse than he was previously. So, yeah. On to the next Friday game. What the hell? On to the next 4 o'clock game. The last one. Seahawks versus 49ers. This game is pretty much a bludgeoning all the way through in a way. Jimmy Garoppolo gets benched. He hasn't played well all season. Looks like he's going to miss 6 weeks with an ankle injury. Also interesting. Do they... I know you're coming off of a Super Bowl, but do you blow it up now? They traded Kollmann Alexander, which is maybe a blessing in disguise, saying that he wasn't really that good. But, do you blow it up now? Do you blow it up now? Because, you're in the top 10 right now in terms of draft pick. One thing I also wanted to say when I talked about the Rams is the NFC West is highly overrated. There's really only one good team in the division. The Rams are good against the NFC East, 4-0 against the NFC East, terrible against everybody else. The 49ers, who beat the Rams, who only beat the NFC East, and beat the Giants and Jets. Neither of those teams have beat anyone good. And then you have the 49ers, who also beat the Pats, who lost to the Broncos, who looked terrible coming into that game. Jarrett Stidham comes in the game too. No. I wouldn't be opposed to blowing it up. Tank for Trevor, tank for Fields. I think they're upgrades over Jimmy G, especially at this point. Just imagine. Anyway, though, they got bludgeoned. Nick Mullins comes in. Will Nick Mullins start? Yes, because Jimmy G's injured. So, yeah. Anyway, they lost by 10. That score is not necessarily how the game went, as the 49ers. The Seahawks controlled this game basically all the way through. And Russell Wilson had 4 touchdowns, adding to his MVP case, because, that's all that matters. But the MVP case is the box scores, some of which basically came off of DK Metcalf being an absolute freak monster. So, yeah, but Wilson also made some amazing throws as well. Jimmy G started the game off well. A nice pass in the intermediate range. A nice pass that was on Kittle. Kittle dropped it. And then after that, it fell off of a cliff. Missed some throws, a bad interception. Then he was benched. It's looking bleak for the 49ers. Like, at this point, I just blow it up. Like, okay, you had higher expectations than you did. You already didn't reach them. Your quarterback is injured. Blow it up. Justin Fields in this offense would be great. Trevor Lawrence, even though you probably not going to out-tank the Jets, but Trevor Lawrence would be great in this offense. So, I mean, Shanahan can make anyone look great, honestly. Nick Mullins will probably look pretty damn good in replacement, as he's looked better than Jimmy Garoppolo has this season, outside of like a couple snaps versus the Jets that Jimmy Garoppolo looked great in. But everyone looked great against the Jets, minus Josh Allen. So, yeah. On to the next game, though. The disaster on Thursday night. Not Thursday, but Sunday night, I meant. A lot of people think this is the worst Sunday night game ever. I mean, it probably is, but it has some close competition from last year's Steelers versus Bills game, but Duck Hodges versus Josh Allen on primetime. That was flexed there. That game was terrible. Duck Hodges was dumpster juice. At least Ben DiNucci was entertainingly trash. Like, trying to do the little sidearm stuff, which doesn't work when you're Ben DiNucci. Carson Wentz just... It was a disaster. Both teams were pretty terrible on offense. The Cowboys and Ben DiNucci generating the lowest EPA per play, or second lowest EPA per play above the Dolphins with Tua on the week. The Eagles, on the other hand, also terrible. I mean, Wentz had some terrible plays, like that play where he rolled all the way out, fumbled. And Wentz just hasn't been good this year. I mean, from an accuracy standpoint, Wentz has never been like a sniper, but he's not looking nearly as good as he did last. I mean, the game didn't start off that bad. Like, outside of that one fumble, he had a nice throw to Aguilar. No, not Aguilar. What the fuck? I have Aguilar on my notes. He had a nice throw to Fulgham. Who was cooking Trayvon Diggs all day, basically. But Trayvon Diggs was Wentz's favorite target today, so he ended up coming out with a couple of interceptions. Trayvon Diggs did. He's a former receiver, so yeah. But like I said, the Cowboys, like I have in my notes here, the Cowboys got a bit too creative. Like, they came out, they just ran a reverse every play. Ran some Wildcat, which is basically a creative way of getting 4 yards. They probably outsmarted themselves. DiNucci was highly inaccurate, missed a ton of throws wildly. They suck. I'll say that, I guess. They suck. DiNucci had some interceptions dropped, fumbles. It was a bad game. But at least DiNucci was entertainingly bad. The sidearm. Like, sometimes when he threw the ball the way he released, it looked like Aaron Rodgers. But the results were like Mitch Trubisky. He looked terrible. But at least it looked aesthetically cool, I guess, when he threw the ball. Man, it was a bad game. I'm done talking about it. Let's get on to the Monday night game and let's get out of here with the Buccaneers versus the Giants. See, this was a game I said could be a potential letdown spot with the Saints looming on Sunday night next week. Maybe look past the Giants a little bit. Brady wasn't that good. Daniel Jones also wasn't that good for the most part. Had an interception that was dropped that could have ended the game, then hit a great throw to Golden Tate. Had this drift out of the pocket that ended up working. He drifted out of the pocket into pressure that ended up working because Slayton made an insane play. The ending of this game was crazy. But, yeah. The ending of this game is crazy. And then you had the play to Dion Lewis, which Antoine Winfield broke up. Antoine Winfield's amazing. I was really high on him coming into the draft. Still really high on him now. He's been great. But yeah, I mean, this is a crazy game that went down to the wire. The Bucs made a weird decision in this game at the end of it. Kicking a field goal on 4th and 1 with 3 minutes left. Deep in the other team's territory, deep in the Giants' territory. To where if you get it, you end the game and they kick the field goal. And it almost bit him in the ass. But Antoine Winfield made a great play. If it wasn't for Antoine Winfield, that game would be in overtime. Would have been to overtime. But yeah. because they made some pretty bad decisions. They should have probably went for 2 after that last touchdown to Evans. Like, they made some pretty disadvantageous play calls, especially with the rate they ran the ball at on the early downs, first and second downs. But Brady still showed up on third down when it matters, even though that method of play isn't really that sustainable. Though he's been amazing. Made a nice throw over the middle to Gronk, which basically, in a way, sealed the game, kinda. But yeah. Brady, from an accuracy standpoint, wasn't as good as he has been, like, the rest of the season. Missed some throws. Just didn't look as good throwing the ball as he had in other games. But still had to throw to Scotty Miller that was dropped. Had a nice throw to Godwin. So I almost called him God Evans. Had a nice throw to Mike Evans. A great throw over the middle. I mean, they still, he made plays. And for the most part of the game, Daniel Jones didn't. Missed a ton of deep balls. They still were in the game, which is interesting. They were still winning the game early in the game. He missed a ton of deep throws, left a ton on the table. Evan Ingram and Daniel Jones finally connect after making up for what was a game-losing drop like a week ago from Evan Ingram. Ended up making up for it with a big catch here. I mean, Daniel Jones has probably been better than, not even probably. Daniel Jones has been better than the numbers. He actually has been pretty good this season. Maybe not that much better than the numbers, but he's been pretty good. He got let down by Evan Ingram last week. Evan Ingram comes up big. Golden Tate comes up big. He gets bailed out by Slayton. Has an interception dropped on that last drive. That last drive was hectic. Then Antoine Winfield made an amazing play. That last drive was just hectic. Bucks hold on, ended up winning the game. I don't think I had them. I don't know if I picked them to cover or not, because I said this is a potential letdown spot. And it was, from a covering the spread standpoint. I know I had the Bucks winning, but I don't remember if I had them covering. So I might have been right on that, but I'm not sure. But yeah. The Giants are still not that good of a team, but they did play a pretty damn good game against a pretty good defense. But like I said, defense doesn't really matter that much from week to week, so yeah. And yeah, the Bucks end up winning the game 25-23, 25-23. And they have the Saints next week, as you're going to get Godwin back. AB's coming in. This team, from a weapon standpoint, has become insane. And they might become unstoppable. Gronk is coming into his own now. Looks less athletic still, but coming into his own now, nonetheless. Mike Evans hasn't been that great outside of some red zone targets, or hasn't even been that involved outside of some red zone targets, which is the craziest thing about it. I wonder where they're going to use AB. They could use him in the slot in Scotty Miller's role, but they have two totally different skill sets. Scotty Miller is basically an all-speed guy, where Antonio Brown is one of the best receivers all around in the NFL. So, yeah. Maybe they use him on the outside more with Godwin in the slot, because Godwin played a lot of his snaps in the slot last year. Potentially, maybe AB plays in the slot. Not a field-stretching slot, but just plays in the slot. Maybe. I'm not sure. We'll see, though, when we get to that week. But, yeah, this is the end of the podcast. Hope you guys enjoy. Like, comment, and subscribe. Turn on post notifications. There will be a mock draft dropping on Friday. Maybe a Joe Burrow versus Herbert video. Just hit the bell so you get notified every time I drop something. And, yeah, I'm out. Peace.